All right. Thank you for joining us today here with Anthony Olmes. Am I saying that right? I
You
was just
got
trying
it.
to get it down before we hit record here. You guys from your diocese have kind of a unique way. You formally introduce yourself as seminarians. So
Yes,
maybe I'll
yeah.
let you do
Yeah.
that. So I'll
So,
jack it up.
Phil, so as you've heard it before, usually when we're at some kind of like formal event, especially, things like, welcome weekend or something like that, first weekend at the seminary, it'd go something like this. So I'd say, hi, I'm Anthony Amos, and I'm from the August Diocese of Helena. Usually a nice little, like a slight bit of pause after the August just to kind of emphasize it. But that's how we usually introduce ourselves. It's a little bit of a tradition from priests before us when they're in seminary over in St. John Vianney in Denver, the other place that guys will go to in our diocese. And we decided to keep that tradition going here in St. Paul. So you guys get to receive that gift.
It is a gift. Thank you. Thank you for breaking that down.
You're
If that
welcome.
analysis is any indication, we'll have a great conversation over the next 20, 30 minutes here. But thanks for taking the time. You guys have crazy busy schedules. So always appreciate being able to sit down and just have you share your life with our audience on the St. Paul Seminary
Yeah,
channel.
for sure. I
So-
appreciate it, Phil. Thank you.
So we'll talk about you, your vocation and your story, and looking at things through the lens of football and
Yeah.
sports, which is near and dear to both our hearts, which will be fun too. But maybe just start at the beginning. Tell us about where you're from, kind of your journey. Played college football, which we'll get into. But just kind of like I said, your journey, where you grew up, and then how that ultimately led you to in your third year of
Yep, that's
seminary
right, third
formation
year.
now technically.
Oh, yeah. All right, sweet. So the story begins on June 15th, 1998, back in San Francisco. That's where I was born, 9 minutes after my twin brother, Alex. So second oldest, he beat me out by 9 minutes. But I've always been appreciative that I have someone to look up to who's, spent more time in this life. I can look to him for experience and everything. It's really great.
If you're like most twins, he probably doesn't let you forget that.
Yeah, there's definitely times growing up where I staunchly believe that I was born first, and then I'd always be told by my parents the truth. And yeah, so
Truth will set you free.
exactly. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. But I was born in San Francisco and then grew up mainly in Benicia, California, also a little bit in Vallejo. Basically about 40 miles away from San Francisco. You have it like San Francisco is down on the peninsula, and then if you were to take a little line and go directly like northeast across the bay, that's where Benicia was.
Okay.
So I got Napa wine country about 30 minutes away, San Francisco about, at 5:45 in the morning, it takes about 30 minutes, but any other time of the day, it's probably about an hour or two to get, to get into the city. But yeah, so that's where I grew up. I'm from a family of 9 kids. There's 8 boys and 1 sister, Lauren, and she's the youngest. She's 6 years old. Alex and I are 25, so 19-year gap there. I grew up at a parish in Benicia that was run by the Dominicans, West Coast Dominicans, and so I went to Catholic school there. And they're really just solid examples of priesthood, really joyful, really good preachers. And as far as like openness to the priesthood, my parents would always encourage us boys to be open, especially since there are so many of us. But it's like
They're like, we got to play our percentages here.
yeah, exactly.
When do you guys to at least look into it, right?
Exactly. They're like,
My
we got
mic
at least,
sorry.
yeah, we got at least 1 in 8. I'm not going to do the math, but 1 in 8 chance, at least of
They played the
getting a
probability
priest.
as well. That's fantastic.
Exactly. So, I just remember, like thinking about it a little bit from time to time, but I'd always think about the Dominicans because they're the priests I knew. And as far as diocesan priests go, I only knew that the Dominicans they had a vow of poverty and the diocesan priests did not. So I thought the Dominicans were more hardcore. And well, it's funny now, here I am, diocesan seminary, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, especially in high school, I just I really loved my faith. I altar served from, like 3rd grade through high school and into college. But as far as priesthood, I would just look at the Dominican priests. I'd, get to know them, and they're really great. But I just was like, I don't think I'm called to be a Dominican. So I can just, check off priesthood off the list. I don't have to worry about thinking about that anymore. But yeah, and I played played high school football before college, and it was actually an incredible journey. My freshman year, our team went 0-13. Or no, sorry, no, not 13, 0-10. Sorry, yeah, that'd be too many games, but 0-10, which was incredible because we had shirts that said 10-0 on them going into the season.
Like that was the goal.
That was the goal.
Yeah.
We got the exact opposite of what we wanted, which is both humbling and just kind of hilarious and a lot of fun still. But then senior year, we redeemed ourselves, and I wrote on my 10-0 shirt our final record of that year, which was 13-3 on the way to the D6 California State Championship, where we beat Strathmore on a last-second field goal, and that was incredible. And my twin brother Alex was on the team. My younger brother Nathan was also on the team. My brother Luke was our videographer, so he made highlight videos for all of our games. And my dad was also an assistant coach, so it was just a whole big family affair there, and had really great teammates. But it was so cool just to start off in one point being at the absolute worst, and then go out on top senior year. And that's kind of where, in high school, I also had just like a little side tangent too. I had opportunities to be a part of the retreat team in high school, so I would help lead different retreats for freshmen, sophomore, junior, senior. So I had a lot of time just to spend time on retreat with the Lord, both being a participant and also being someone who is behind the scenes, or coming up with different games, or writing up prayers to say as a crew. So all that stuff just was it was so fun. And altar serving, I still did it in high school, even though people would usually my friends would just kind of give me grief about it. They're like, "What are you doing?" And they didn't really get it. But I always enjoyed serving at the altar. I always enjoyed being with the priests. Kind of getting that front row seat. It's kind of fun. You have something to do, and just really had a front row seat to all the action, getting to be there with the priests, and just led to some really cool opportunities where sometimes it'd be serving a funeral mass at the parish, or the bishop would be in town and we'd serve for the bishop, things like that. And so I just got a really cool insight into my faith due to that experience in altar serving. And so it was really cool. Sports and faith were definitely both part of my life. And I'd say definitely more so I think on the whole pretty actually equally balanced in high school, which sometimes it's hard to manage that. And then eventually I got an opportunity to play. I got to do a preferred walk-on thing with Carroll College, where I did my undergrad out in Helena, Montana. So, it's on the western side of the state, and you have Yellowstone to the south, you have Glacier to the north, and Rocky Mountains all in between it. And Helena itself is just in this beautiful valley, mountains all around. And so it was really beautiful. Just how that all worked out. Part of it was visiting earlier in high school, and my dad just had heard about them from they were featured on Sports Illustrated, I think in 2006 or something like that. There's a picture of one of the guys in the mud after a national championship victory, and just mud all over him, arms of victory. And that's where my dad found out about Carroll, and he was like, "Well, it's a Catholic school, it's in Montana, which I love, and outdoors are great, and then they also have really good football, and I got plenty of boys, so this sounds like the greatest place to send my kids." So anyway, my dad would just follow them, and we'd be like, "Dad, why are you following this random team in Montana?" And he wouldn't really tell us why. And then we eventually went to go visit, got to meet Father Mark Lenneman, who was the chaplain and also was my first vocations director, the one who ended up bringing me into seminary. And then also got to meet the current coach at that time, Coach Van Diest, who is also a really, really solid Catholic man. So our family really bonded with him over that in our little times together. But through all those connections and just kind of keeping in touch in high school, shooting highlight videos and everything, that's how the high school circuit works. Eventually I didn't have a formal scholarship opportunity, but preferred walk-on status. I mean, I was pretty happy about that. And so then I had my signing day on Ash Wednesday of my senior year of college. So it was really awesome. The newspaper had a picture of me and my family all with our ashes on our forehead, signing the letter of intent and everything. Yeah, it was one of the coolest days of my life for sure. Just kind of feel like, wow, here we go. Like I'm living the dream, like college football, here we come, and and so that's kind of like everything up until college football. We kind of took a little bit of some journeys in there, but I think that's pretty sufficient for at least up until college, kind of what my life was like.
It sounds like you kind of always took your faith seriously, more or less.
Yeah.
And that's been a big part of the journey. I'm sure your family's been a big part of that.
For sure.
Where did the priesthood enter the picture specifically?
Yeah.
Is that kind of a gradual thing, like maybe you were saying from all the examples you had? Or
yeah,
walk us through that.
I would say for sure. Yeah, definitely a gradual thing. For one, being out here, you have like St. John Vianney guys at the seminary, college seminary. And I had no idea that even existed.
Yeah.
It's like that. I mean, so there's that. And, and then, I was with Dominicans and they were great. And like I had some, we kind of had a rotating host of chaplains in high school too, where we would have different priests would come and celebrate mass for us at the school. But yeah, it was definitely very gradual. And honestly, I feel like on the whole, it was more of the journey of like, trying to pursue, eventually learning more and more how to just dive deeper into virtue and becoming a man of God. And then that kind of leading me to being open to priesthood, honestly. So, it really wasn't until college that any serious thoughts of priesthood came up, I'm in college at Carroll College in Helena, and I'm playing football for the Fighting Saints, and it's kind of crazy in college. You're in college, and there's 99 other guys just about on the team. Like about 100 guys on a roster, kind of thing. And in some ways, it's like wow. Not that I was even like a big star athlete, where I was at, but at the very least, I was making some of the all league stuff and. We won a state championship, and you're like, dang, we feel pretty good about that. And then you come to college, and like everybody on the team, dang near, is, especially the ones that actually did get scholarship, like they're all, if they didn't win championships, they're like all state, all county, everything. Like they're legit. Like the level of competition is just crazy. It's like it's not like high school anymore where, like guys can play, depending on where you're at, like. You may not be the most athletic guy in the field, but you still can get some time here and then. But, so that was kind of a huge shock to me, first of all. My time in college football actually definitely just didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. I came in I was hoping – I knew the first year. I was like I knew for sure I wasn't going to get time the first year. I'd just redshirt and do that whole thing. And that was a lot of fun. You get to know the guys and get used to being a college athlete and kind of realize more and more of this actually college sports is more of it's more of a job, than anything else. I mean, you spend so much time in the weight room, watching film and going to meetings, watching more film, going to practice. Man, it was wild.
Especially in football. Really, you get 12 games, 11 games back then maybe. The rest of the time is...
Yeah, exactly.
Suffering.
It is. Yeah, especially winter ball. I still have some flashbacks of waking up. You have to be at practice about 5 a.m. And I'm a college student, so I don't go to sleep early. And I just would set multiple alarms in the night. And even without the multiple alarm, those aside, I would probably wake up almost every half hour, just afraid I'm gonna sleep in and miss the winter ball practice, the winter ball workout. And there's some times in seminary, I still have those moments. Where I wake up and I'm late for practice, and then oh wait, no, it's 3 a.m. and we don't. Yeah, it's still early, but it's holy hour isn't until 6:30. I'm like, okay, cool, I can go back to sleep.
Peace.
Yeah, peace. But but it was wild. I mean, it was a lot of fun, but yeah, it was a huge time commitment. it was just such a different game from high school.
Yeah.
So going from there, I go into my sophomore season, and once again, I wasn't, I'm now no longer a red shirt, but I was like, I'm at the very least, maybe I'll have a shot at special teams this year. But most guys, the majority of guys, don't really get a shot until their third season to really like start making some progress in the depth charts. So once again, I was pretty okay with that. And at this time too, though, I was definitely learning how to actually like own my faith, of course. Now that at this point I was about 15 and a half, 16 hours from home.
Yeah.
I guess like when I look back on it, I guess the beautiful thing is that I didn't stop going to mass on Sundays, and I didn't like completely lose my faith or anything. Like that was still there's still like a baseline that was there, but now there's like, I could go out and party with my football teammates on the weekend, and I would, and like I wouldn't go super crazy, but I definitely was living a little, like I'd basically go party with the guys on Saturday, and then on Sunday I'd go to mass. And for my first 2 years of college, for the most part, like it really just didn't click that maybe there's something a little like imbalanced here, maybe there's something a little off. It's like maybe I might be living two kind of separate lives right now. And so but along that time though, I had plenty of friends that were both on the football team and not. Had some really solid, had the presence of Father Mark Lenneman, and then eventually Father Christopher Lebsock, who's now my vocations director too. We bonded because he was an ex-football player, and the first time I met him was actually in our weight room, and he was I can't remember exact. I know that at some point he was like on a bike and he was reading like it was either the scripture or some like theological text, and I was like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, I'm Father Christopher Lebsock. I'm like, no way, you're a priest. Like, it was insane.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I just had the witness of like those guys, and good Catholic friends that are there with me along the way. I just kind of found myself kind of almost like my foot in two different worlds for the first 2 years of college. So we get to junior year, and at this point, it's like, okay, now hopefully I'll get a shot. I've been working my way up. Like the coaches seem to like me. Like I've stuck it out. I haven't quit yet. It was at that point, going into my junior season, that the coach that I knew coming in, he ended up resigning from his job. Take some time off. Just like he was stepping away from the head coaching gig, and at first, I was definitely for sure disappointed, just because I really liked Coach Van Diest. But the new coach Purcell, he came in, and I liked him. He was a good guy, and he was really fired up to get things going. And so I just jumped back in it, and at some point in the winter ball, spring ball system, there was a point where I got up to the second string, and it was really awesome. And I was like, finally, I'm making it. And then I got sick for like 3 days and completely just dropped out of that depth chart, it's one of those things where honestly, and it's like, I never got back up to that depth again, for the remainder of my time. And it's one of those things where like, especially now, I definitely don't look back at that with any real like resentment. For one, there's an aspect of college sports, it's definitely more of a business than high school, and there's a lot more stuff going on. You have recruiting classes of guys that you want coming in, coaching changes, and it's just like it. And also, the coaches were great too. Like, so I don't really have anything against them. That's just the nature of the beast sometimes with sports, and that's just how it worked out. And in some ways, I'm very grateful, because I can look at that fall season of junior year. This is like where really a lot of stuff started falling in place for me, while other things were falling apart. Junior year, I'm now like, I didn't even make the travel squad. I'm lifting with like freshmen and sophomores at 5 a.m. and then going to practice at like 6 a.m. And then I go to classes for the day, and I'm super tired. I remember many times I just I'd like snap out of consciousness and I'd look at what I wrote for my notes, and it's just like scribbles. There's nothing legible there. And so I'd be doing all that, go to meetings again in the afternoon. And providentially that year I lived right above an adoration chapel on campus. Kind of one of those ones where it has like, the kind of peekaboo doors, but it's like adoration available anytime you want,
Huge.
Yeah. And so I'd be there probably mostly around 10 p.m., 11 p.m. after the day's over. And I'd just be like, I'd just come in and just, I'd just tell the Lord, I'd just like, Lord, today just like, it sucked, like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. Like, I think maybe I need to quit. Like, I have no idea what's going on. And there's all these fears, right? Where I'm afraid of losing friends because my life has pretty much just been football and then kind of school. But like my identity has been college football player the last like 2.5 years. Right. And, fear of losing friends, fear of just like the unknown in that regard. I just tell the Lord, about my day and how, it was just really hard. And he reminded me in adoration, he'd just tell me like, just basically like, Anthony, if everything were to fall away, if football were to fall away, college education, even if like your family and your friends all went away, it's like, I'm your rock. I'll always be here for you. And I had heard that so many times in my life up until that point, and it's not that I didn't believe it before, but this was a moment where I was like, wow, I actually know what this means. And like, I really believe it now. Like it's like, it's in my soul now. And so
could you hear like, sorry to interrupt you, like an audible voice, or is it kind of one of those?
No, not this one.
Senses in
Later on,
in
there's
the
an
spirit?
audible voice, but this one was just more of just like an overall theme of my time of prayer.
Yeah.
It's just
That's
the
the
Lord is my
takeaway?
rock. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And just like the comfort and consolation that he brought in those moments.
Yeah.
So that ended up looking like I ended up quitting at the end of that season, which it was really hard to do, mostly because I didn't want to disappoint my friends and everything. But they totally understood. Coaches totally understood. So all those fears were for nothing really. And, after that it was like, okay, Lord, what am I going to do now? You got to show me what's next. And, I got an opportunity to go to SLS 20, with Focus, is it like, always forget what like the full acronym is. I always mess it up, but isn't it like Fellowship of Catholic University Students?
You
Is
nailed
that right?
it.
Yes.
And the SLS piece is sort of is that the smaller conference?
That's the smaller one.
Kind of, it's for students who are on like a leadership track. Right?
Exactly.
So you're leading Bible studies, you're leading.
Yeah.
leading groups
And so this one was, my chaplain, Father Mark, he invited me and my brother and two of my friends, and then some other ladies from our community at Carroll to go there, partly because we were going to check out Focus, and they were trying to get Focus missionaries to come the following year, and so they were having us come out there just to see it and check it out and be able to tell the school like, hey.
So Focus was not on campus
they were not
at this point.
Yeah,
so
they were not on
you're in
campus
those
at this
stages
point.
of maybe trying to make that happen.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And I went to that conference, and I left that conference fired up with like a new fire that really I feel like hasn't really gone out since. Like, it's like maybe sometimes it looks more like a little bit like a glowing ember, but it's never gone completely out since. And I was just like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life, Lord, but it seems like I'll be most fulfilled serving the church in some way. And I didn't know what that looked like at the time, but it seemed like the first thing that needs to happen before anything like marriage, priesthood, anything, is that I really need to look at how I'm living my life right now, and I need to actually conform to being a man of God. And and so that was really the first thing that came up. And
did someone point that out to you, or did you kind of come to that realization on your own? Because like that time of your life, especially as men in the church, like we put so much pressure on ourselves at that point. I have to figure out if I'm supposed to be married. I have to figure out if I'm supposed to be a priest. But you were able to lock in on like first things first, which I think is good advice for
sure,
for anybody.
Yeah, for sure. I can't necessarily remember if there was any particular person who told me that piece of advice.
Yeah.
I'm sure at the very least in my subconscious there were homilies that Father Mark gave that were along those lines. No, they definitely were. But I just remember that in particular being a specific grace from SLS.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so, and then it was crazy. Right after SLS, there was probably about, a month or two, and then everybody got sent home for COVID because it was 2020, and so I went back
doing distance learning.
Yeah, I went back to California, finished out my junior year online, an hour behind everybody else, and my 9:15 classes that were really nice became 8:15 classes, and but in the midst of that, and this is where once again, just like a real step in towards where I am now.
Yeah.
Providentially, one of my really great friends from college, he's now a Benedictine monk out in Washington State. I forget which monastery, but he introduced me to night prayer probably about a month or two before before I got sent home, and my brother and I, we decided that we were going to introduce this to our family, and they were all on board because we had nothing else really to do, and so we would pray night prayer as a family throughout COVID, being in quarantine together. And then I also heard some stories of if you pray a 54-day novena for your future spouse, you're supposed to find them after it's done and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I'm definitely doing that. And so the 4 oldest boys, we got together and prayed this 54-day novena while in quarantine together. And so honestly, it was pretty crazy. Just in this time where, and especially as it dragged on, it was just wow, yeah, I miss going to Mass and being able to receive the Eucharist. But I was like, wow, what a beautiful time with my family to really dive into family life just in a more intentional way together, to pray together. And I got to come back after that time and come back to Montana. At that point, they already were back celebrating Mass in person, just with limited seating and with masks and everything. And came back. I got to start up my year and a half with U-Haul to close out college. And during that summer, I was hanging out with my friends and with seminarians and with priests. And then, of course, hanging out with these guys, I'm like, wow, maybe there's something to this. Maybe I'm called to be one of these guys.
Wow.
That's kind of what got the ball rolling there.
Yeah.
And, then we zoom forward to senior year. And, there's let's see. Yeah, there's a couple last ditch efforts of going on some dates, which was it was great. I mean, nothing bad happened. It was just I went on a couple dates, and it was just clearly this wasn't wasn't going to go anywhere. And I'm pretty sure I told this girl about discerning priesthood afterwards, and now looking back, I'm not sure if that really was the right move to close out this break off of our dating,
Yeah.
But she's doing fine though. She just finished up some missionary work in Honduras and everything. So
I think most of us can look back at college and think of things we told the ladies in some of those moments. I could have handled it better.
Yeah. But it's all fine, right? At the end of the day. And so that's happened. And then there's this period where my brother, and two of my really great friends, Jamie and then Nathan, the guy that I talked about earlier, who introduced me to night prayer, right after, one after the other, over the course of 3 days, they all talked to Bishop Vedder and started their application process to seminary after, discernment and everything. And so that was wild. And I was just wow, guys, I was so happy for them. And, I was I thought that was so cool. And then I was
that surprised you? Had you guys talked about this?
Yeah.
As a possibility, or?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, yeah, it wasn't a complete surprise because, my brother Alex, before I did for sure, actually, he's been already, been thinking about priesthood and talking with our chaplain and everything. And really, really funny story that, I can tell you more of a from another time, but I went to your alma mater, Benedictine, for my last spring break right before COVID happened. And, basically I was supposed to go there with Alex and we were supposed to hang out with my cousins. And, he ended up going on a seminary visit, and he ended up winning this crazy amount of money at at a casino, and he bought me my plane ticket to be able to go see my cousins at BC. And
That's awesome.
so yeah, just kind of show you that he was already thinking about it,
Yeah.
and that's not where I was at
Sure.
that time, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So all
so
three of them apply, and
all three of
they're
them
looking at
apply,
it.
and I'm just like, you know, Lord, that's awesome. And then I'm like, and I you know, of course, I turn back to myself and like, Lord, when are you gonna toss me a bone? When are you gonna tell me what I'm supposed to do? You know, and so that was good for me. I was like, you know, I was already doing some spiritual direction, and that was just some really good fuel for the fire to keep you know, diving in with the Lord. And yeah, it was probably about, I think, a month later. Happened to be in quarantine at our house, and our chaplain told us to go out into our carport in the backyard and just go like, hey, just go make sure you pray a holy hour every day because you got nothing better to do. You know, you don't have to go to work, you don't have to go to classes, you know. And so, yeah, over the course of that week, the Lord just really was putting seminary on my heart, you know. And you know, during the course of that week, I talked to my parents about it, and I don't know why I was so nervous because I knew that they would be supportive, but, you know, and then I told them about it, and they're like, oh, that's great, Anthony. You know, like, we're super happy to hear that. And honestly, out of all of our kids, you're the one that we thought would be a priest anyway, so
Wow.
it doesn't really surprise us. And I'm like, wow, that's really incredible.
That's vindicating.
Yeah, vindicating for sure. So yeah, and then this is where, so like, I think it was the next day after finishing up a holy hour in the carport, I go back and I'm getting ready for bed. I'm brushing my teeth, and had a really great holy hour. And just like, yeah, this whole question of seminary is just kind of like, it kind of feels like I'm like on the brink of like, oh, okay, maybe there's a decision that needs to be made. And yeah, that's where like, so far in my life, this is like a time where I can for sure, like, this Lord's voice, you know, and he's just like, it's like, Anthony, you want to go to seminary? I'm like, you're right, Lord, I do want to go to seminary. And I just like, you know, after that, it was crazy. I mean, I just like, everything felt right about that, you know, kind of like saying that out loud. And like my heart just kind of felt like it was out of my chest, like with so much joy. It was beautiful. And I told the rest of my guys in my house, and they were all excited. And I even had Bishop Vedder's phone number from like a birthday party we planned for him a couple months before with the college students. And so I called him, and you know, he doesn't pick up because he's a bishop and he has stuff to do.
Right.
And so I leave him a voicemail, and I was like, hey, Bishop, I hear you want like 50 seminarians. So I want to talk to you about adding to that number. All right. You know, God bless. I just hung up the phone, and ended up meeting with him 2 weeks later, got the application rolling. And then, and then later on I found out that myself and, you know, James, he's, you know, James, that we were part of the crew that was going to be the first guys back at St. Paul Seminary since like the early 2000s, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, from our diocese. So yeah.
You're like, oh, Minnesota, great. This is what I signed up for.
Yeah, exactly. It was funny, actually. I remember the first winter out here, I was like, you know, coming from California, I gotten used to Montana. I was like, okay, it's really not too bad. And then I came to Minnesota, and I was like, man, your winters are actually like pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like the cold just sinks in a little more out here, you know?
Yeah, it's merciless. It starts and it doesn't stop
and then
for like 3 months.
And then the snow melts, and then you're left with all these beautiful potholes to drive around.
Potholes, you know, and the slush.
So I was wondering, is that where all the lakes come from? Is that all the no,
just the snow melt?
Yeah,
might be onto something there. We don't have to worry about it this year, though.
No, not this year. No.
Quite a crazy, unseasonably warm winter here, but
yeah,
that's awesome. So your brother's still in seminary?
So at the moment, we both did. So he was over at St. John Vianney in Denver. We both did the Propaedeutic.
They split you guys up, huh?
They did.
Okay.
Which honestly,
you focus up a little bit that way.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Yeah.
It was for the best. I mean, it really made a lot. It wasn't quite entirely clear then, but after being in seminary for the last 3 years almost, it just makes a lot of sense. And it was really good. And it's been really good for both of us. But yeah, Alex, he's back in Helena. We both went through a Propaedeutic year and then a pre-theology 1. And then after pre-theology 1, for him, it was just, Lord, the next best move was just to take some time off and just see, so right now he's discerning still, and, we'll see. Maybe he comes back, maybe he doesn't. Either way, I mean, he's following the Lord's will, and right now he's doing youth ministry back at our cathedral and everything.
That's awesome.
So yeah, he's doing great.
Yeah, I think there's a changing of the tide and the stigma around like discerning out or taking a break. As lay people, as Catholics, we want as many awesome good priests as we can get.
Right.
But as you're learning firsthand, big part of seminary isn't just like churning out priests. It's helping you discern if that's your call or not. And to some of the points you've made, you kind of have to just get your relationship with Christ right first before
Right.
some of those bigger questions of, okay, where do I go? So I think for your brother or you or any of the other guys who are still pretty early in the journey, that's important to point out of like discerning out isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because you've been formed in a way that you will take that to whatever walk of life. And we're, I think, doing a lot better job. Obviously, I'm biased because of who cuts my paycheck. But as a church of, getting the right guys through, to put it kind of crudely.
No,
So
I agree. I agree for sure. And it's like, one thing I've definitely learned in seminary is that, seminary isn't a priest factory.
yeah, right.
We don't just come in and like they don't just download and like put in the right parts.
Yeah.
And we're not robots.
Yeah.
Guys.
Just get the right
Hopefully you can
algorithm
tell.
going, and
I'm not a robot if you can't tell.
Right.
So it's
no question.
no, but
That's great. And then
Yeah.
did your family move to Helena?
They did.
during this
Yeah.
time. Okay,
so it
they're
was
back there now,
exactly.
which is why you're.
Well,
Uh,
actually, I ended up, I signed up for the Diocese of Helena before that was. I
Okay,
didn't even know that they were going to come out.
that's awesome.
It was just mostly because that's where the Lord called.
Yeah.
And like that's where the call to priesthood actually came. So it was a pretty easy decision to pick Diocese of Helena, Montana,
Yeah,
the August, as
the
we
Augusta
referred to earlier.
Helena, Montana.
No, but it's great. They're now over there. They've spent 2 winters so far, and they're doing great.
Yeah.
And it's just nice. It's nice now that family is also where the diocese is.
So you mentioned the Propaedeutic year, which is a fancy way of saying
Yeah,
preparation, introductory, preparatory year, which is a relatively new year. I kind of describe it as an added layer of formation. Again, kind of talking about forming men in the right way to truly discern if this is what God's calling them to. You were part of the first Propaedeutic
That's right.
stage
That's
at the
right.
seminary.
Mm-hmm.
So you and your guys in your class were kind of guinea pigs, but
Yep.
it's cool to hear yours and some of the other fellas' stories now that you're a couple years removed from that, of how that did prepare you for going through philosophy. Now is a big part of it on the intellectual side, but maybe briefly just describe what the Propaedeutic year is, what it was like, highlights, lowlights, how it prepared you for where you're at now.
For sure. Well, I usually tell people, for one, that you'll never have a year like the Propaedeutic year.
Yeah.
It's like, and up until that point in my life, I always tell people like that was definitively the best year of my life. No other year of my life really topped that. And it's kind of been almost like a continuation of the greatest year of my life since being in seminary.
Awesome.
Propaedeutic year. Well, we have one of the hallmarks that's, I guess in some ways almost is like kind of the flash of the year is having the tech fast, media fast.
That's the point that resonates with us normal Catholics out there in the world. It's like, wait, you did what?
Yeah. It was just
You're
a
like
beautiful gift.
deviceless for
Yeah.
basically you
Yeah.
get, what, an
Everything
hour to
except Saturday.
check email or something?
Yeah.
on
Saturday.
Saturdays? Yeah.
It changed a little bit after our first year, but we had probably like most of Saturday we could check phone, email, that stuff. But other than that, no tech, at least in that regard.
Sounds amazing.
It was, and it was.
Says the guy with a Shure microphone in front of him. He's
Yeah,
gonna put this on
exactly.
YouTube later.
No, seriously.
No,
But it's that in particular. It opens up so much room for all the other beautiful graces of that year. First of all the 2 silent retreats you have, both are incredible. They're the first ones I'd ever gone on in my life, and I continue to be blown away by like how the Lord speaks, honestly, like so powerfully and so like kind of almost a way like so loudly in the silence.
No doubt. Yeah.
And so that was beautiful. You have you have the great joy of having thin walls and small like cells that you live in, and so forces you out of the room for sure. And for myself, not as big of an issue. I think I'm more of an extrovert on the whole, but for other guys that aren't quite as extroverted, I mean, it's a huge gift and opportunity. Yeah, and let's see, having mass every day, holy hour every day, praying morning and evening prayer together, and just like living life as a house with 15 other guys. You have 2 deacons, at least is what we had in our year, and then Father Floater. The Propaedeutic, and as I said in the video, the Propaedad.
That's right. You were in the first promo video for the Propaedeutic stage.
I had more hair in that promo
Floater's
video.
in charge.
Though.
He's the Propaedad. Did you have more hair then?
I did. I had more hair, but still, and a little bit longer beard.
Yeah. You've cleaned up since then.
Just a little bit, yeah.
And when you say the house, like, it really is a house. You guys are in a separate building from the rest of the seminary residents, and that's by design.
Yeah, what is it, like, probably, at least probably like a 5-ish minute drive.
Yeah, it's like,
but
it's less
20-minute walk. Yeah,
it's right here
not
in
that
St. Paul. Yeah,
but yeah.
But there's a intentionality behind kind of being separate, right?
Definitely. Yeah, and, it's just such a different year in some way. Well, in so many ways from the rest of the life of the seminary.
Yeah,
and it's like there's such a beautiful intentionality of what's going on in the life there. We take turns doing chores in the house. We take turns cooking our Lord's Day meals on Saturdays, where after the meal we'll share graces from the week. And you also just, I don't know. I mean, at least for our year, we had a lot of fun just doing dishes and trying to remember songs that we knew from growing up and just singing, in the kitchen. And in particular, there's one guy in our house that's probably one of the best examples of like the beauty of the Propaedeutic year, where about like a week or two in, we didn't have our phones, and we were trying to figure out like a lot of us weren't really around St. Paul before coming to seminary, and so we're like, how do we get around? We found a map, and we're looking for this place.
Like a paper map.
Yeah, paper map. Yep.
Those still exist.
They still exist. Yep. And
I remember my dad pulling the atlas out. You might be too young to even have that memory.
I do remember an atlas for sure. My dad had for sure had an
atlas out.
Yeah.
On the dashboard.
Yeah, absolutely awesome.
So you had to use a paper map.
And the best part was that one of the guys was looking and he was like, here, let me look at this real quick. And he tried to zoom in on the map. And
like pinching it?
Pinching it like it was a touchscreen, and we just all lost it.
Man.
And he was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is so
funny."
Yeah, it's like one of the best things, It's like, and just going to restaurants, and we're the loudest table there because everyone else is just scrolling away, Yeah, it's a beautiful year.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and just like you have so much time just to be with the Lord, and like there's so much of your identity as a beloved son that's affirmed in so many different ways through your classes, that through formation, through your retreats. And like that's definitely one of the biggest graces I got from that year, was just like a real solid identity, where before I talked about how I kind of had this identity of being a college football player, and then that got stripped away, and I was starting to grow in this like, I'm actually like a beloved son of God is who I am first and foremost. And the Propaedeutic year just like solidified that, and that's carried me through the last like almost 2 years of philosophy too, when when you get into classes and sometimes your head's worrying a little bit, and it's like it's been really fun. I really have enjoyed it, but like there's days that are really fun, there's days that are harder, and but having that reminder of like I'm a beloved son of God, and it's like he's pleased in me before I even do anything. It's like at the moment of Jesus' baptism, he's he says, behold, like my son, or like this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. And at that point, Jesus, all he had done was seemingly nothing, or like did some carpentry, but he hadn't done any cool like miracles yet. He hadn't turned the water into wine, and it's just like that still always is just like that's always with me wherever I go. Is that the Father's been pleased with me before I came to seminary. Yeah. He's pleased with me now, and it's like whenever I fall, he'll always be happy to receive me in the confessional too. It's Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And you've gotten to play some football still.
Exactly. Yeah.
In seminary.
I still get to lace up the cleats.
Tell me, for those who are uninitiated,
Yeah.
what is the Rector's Bowl?
Yeah,
It
the
happens
Rector's
every
Bowl.
fall.
Yeah, it happens
October.
every fall, October. We get, some of us during that time, we refer to that seminary up north, we get prepared for for the once a year grand battle, grand game of the Rector's Bowl. And it's really awesome. You have the guys at St. Paul Seminary that are on the whole a little more hardy men that have, they've seen a little more years.
They've seen some stuff.
Yeah, they've seen some stuff.
Compared to the college seminarians.
Yeah, we're not quite as spry.
Summit Avenue.
Exactly. Yeah. And, it's us just basically trying to figure out the strategy of how, trying to play a game of strategy versus the guys at SJV. They have their awesome gifts of their youth and their athleticism. And it's so fun. It's so fun. It's 7-on-7. I think it's an 80-yard field. We shortened the field a little bit, but we play on the UST football stadium. And so since then, I like to tell people that I'm a D1 seminary athlete.
That's right.
Yep. So
that's right.
Yeah.
You got that status.
Yep.
Your NIL payments coming through okay? Everything? Sorry. Had to throw it out.
It's all going to charity right now.
That's good. Yeah,
I'm not taking it for
that's
myself.
The way to do
Simplicity.
It. Yep. That's the way to do it. Live in simplicity.
Yep.
So it's flag football.
Yep.
There's blocking though, right?
And there's
There's
blocking.
a little bit of line play.
There's a little bit of line play. There's a surprising amount of contact that happens.
Yeah.
And most of it is honestly just it's just spur of the moment testosterone. It's you can't really blame anybody on either side for it. But yeah, it's just intense. So fun. They always bring their A game. We always try to bring ours, and we start the first one that we had after the COVID year, I think. What was it? I guess it was my first year. It got canceled because a bunch of guys got sick.
It was your first year because there were outbreaks. Yep.
Yeah.
So that would have been 21 when COVID was still kind of creeping around on the college campus and stuff.
So,
and then the seminary too. So we're still dealing with that.
Yeah, but
you got to play in
2022 and 2023, the last two. And the 2022 one, I think, it didn't go to overtime, but we lost by 2.
Yeah.
It was a very close game.
We had
a really big second half comeback. It was super fun. I think I played QB for most of the first half and some of the second half, and then Mitch came in and subbed because he's a bit more speedy.
Little change of pace.
Yeah, a little change of pace, and that was working well. And we just came up a little short there. And then this last year, there's the video up, but you guys can check it out. But what was it? Triple overtime?
I think it was 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll put a link in the description.
Yeah.
We've got some great footage from it, some great video of Anthony and other guys kind of playing and going behind the scenes and stuff. It was a lot of we really tried to capture it this year, which was fun.
Yeah.
So.
It was a lot of fun just sling the rock again and lace up the cleats. But I was telling the guys at practice though that I really want this to be an opportunity especially for guys who have that don't really have a great history with sports. Whether they were they just weren't the most athletic guys and they would get picked in, at recess or, that didn't make the team in high school. It's especially if that's your experience, or even for a guy like me who played college football, it's I want this to be an experience of we're going to have fun together as brothers. We're going to keep everything, positive. We're going to have fun playing together. And I want this experience to be something that you can actually take into your holy hour, that you can take some lessons from the field of persevering through being tired, and take that to when you're suffering in desolation, just to persevere and wait for the Lord, and or just to actually have this be a place of healing too. And I think a lot of guys actually they receive that really well. And I think that's really been what has made it super fun. Is just it's brotherhood, but also Christ, trying our best to keep Christ at the center of this and not letting it become, I need to relive my glory days of high school football or college or whatever. Yeah.
I think it's really cool how seriously it can be taken because you guys are competitive, both
Yes,
sides.
for sure.
You're men, you're young men. But I think it has a lesson to teach those being formed and anybody who either goes to the game or watches this or just knows that this is kind of part of the deal and is maybe attracted to it because we like sports,
Yep.
is I think it's rightly ordered,
Yes.
so you get those competitive juices going, you do your best to glorify God, kind of all these lessons that we can draw from sports and put out there as parallels to the faith. But I almost describe it like a hockey fight. Like you go out there and you do your best and you try to pummel each other because you want to win, and you get up and shake hands, And I think there's something so manly about that.
For sure.
And if you just look at Catholic Seminary, it's all men. So there's kind of this epitome of manhood that sports brings out, and I think I would just wonder like how well you, especially as a former athlete, but then all the guys are able to tie competition, into your journey, because it seems like you're using it for good, not just
For sure.
hey, this is some fun thing we get to do once a year. Like there's a lot of intentionality behind it.
Yeah, and I know for myself, I'm sure I'm not the only guy that could say this, but there's a level of like, this is a good avenue for humility, for one. Like there's this, I mean, especially going into these events, it's so easy to just like, and I'm guilty of this. I'll watch like highlight videos, I'd like recap some of like my own high school videos, or like I'm watching like Randy Moss, or I'm watching like, watching like Patrick Mahomes or something.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yeah, that's what I'm going to be. That's like, I'm going to be doing all that stuff on the field. And you just get on the field and it's like, no, I'm a 25-year-old guy that's, not quite as fast and a little bit bigger than I was in college. And like, there's a humility check there, but especially, I'll just like to kind of, especially with this last game, I threw a pick in like that triple overtime that ended up being a pick six, like, and we lost on a pick six,
Yeah.
And
You were such a good sport about it, though.
No,
like, there's footage of you being positive after that and stuff. I was admirable,
well,
I think.
And I think this is the reason why, because once again, I feel like I'm just kind of bringing this up again and again, but it's for a reason. But it's like, once again, my identity is not in football.
Yeah.
It's once again, I'm a beloved son of God, and everything else flows from that, whether that be me being a seminarian, me being a seminarian D1 athlete, like quarterback, but all but it's like, that's the confidence I have that, it's like, I can actually treat this game as it actually is. It's really a fun gift that I don't even like, none of us really even like deserve to have a football game to like be something that we get to do once a year, or a basketball tournament like the other guys, in Milwaukee. Like all these things, they're just like, they're all gifts, and they're also, there's been opportunities for us to like really practice ordering rightly our desire for competition. There's like, of course, a desire to like prove ourselves as men and things like that. But just to like see it and just to to enjoy it for what it is, and not let it turn into an ego fest. And if it was doing that, I don't think we'd be doing it anymore if it was becoming an ego fest. But it's become really a good point of fraternity, and just helping ourselves like to really continue to shore up that like the true identity that's at the base of who we are.
It's been going on a while. I think this is like the 23rd one or something like that.
Yeah,
so
that sounds about right.
So the tradition dates back a while, which is just cool. It is unique to have a college seminary like St. John Vianney College Seminary, literally right across the street from a major seminary.
Right.
And just like St. Paul Seminary, SJV has guys like yourself from all over the upper Midwest and beyond. So to see you guys compete against each other, but then also, embrace at the end and have that fraternity as men who are all on different stages of the same journey in some ways is really cool. I feel like I could talk to you all day. Thank you so much for the time. Last one, and we'll get you out of here. Maybe just some lessons as a D1 seminary athlete, but no, like we look at sports today, and the day we're recording this, the Super Bowl is just couple days ago. It was the most watched TV program ever. Sports are so ingrained in our culture, and we talk about things being rightly ordered. What do you see as key to kind of striking that balance? I'm thinking about families who want their kids to, benefit from the goods of youth sports and things like that, but also want to keep the Sabbath holy.
Yeah.
Like that's
totally.
That's contradictory. I live just north of the National Sports Center, and every day on our way to Mass, there's, soccer tournaments going on from spring to fall is just, one example. So how can we as Catholics, who love sports and want to see sports in the right place, kind of keep things rightly ordered, would you say, as someone who's lived that in a really unique way, as someone who's preparing for priesthood?
I'm glad that you asked a pre-theologian that's not been on parish, that's not been a teaching parish. But no, it's like, there's a part of it where I'm like, I feel somewhat unqualified, but I'm going to
You've taken a lot more philosophy classes than I have. So.
Yeah, well, all right, we'll give it a shot. So this is, I guess what would I say about this, I guess, as Anthony Olmes, D1 seminary athlete. No, but they're like, the rightly ordering, first of all, it's like, okay, who is actually number one? Is it my sports team? Is it my my life as an athlete? Is that number one? Or is it actually Christ? Like on Sunday, am I trying to find a mass that I can go to, even if I have to go to a tournament on Sunday, like, am I finding a mass that I can go to like earlier in the morning, sacrifice a little bit to do that? And I think it's just like, not just because of something like, oh, you have to do this because you're Catholic and, otherwise like, you're sinning or something like that. Like, what's really deeper in that, like, in what I'm talking about right here is that, like, the Lord totally will reward you for your sacrifice. It does not go unnoticed by our Lord. And as I've heard from our chaplain, Father Mark, he says the Lord is never outdone in generosity. And I think if we can be generous with our time, especially on Sundays, and prioritize the Lord above our athletics, which are so good. There's so much good about athletics. There's so much good for, at least I can speak from the guy's perspective, but being a young man that's lifting, that's like pushing hard in the weight room, that's competing hard, and like is actually learning how to suffer well, through these practices, through these lifts, through these games. There's so much good to be had there, but you can't place secondary things above the primary thing. It's like, what is it? Corruption of the best is the worst, And I've seen that happen, especially in the college scene, where guys like, they totally prioritize themselves as an athlete, a college athlete first. And I talk to them and they're just like, everything seems great on the outside, but on the inside, man, it's rough. Like, there's a lot of bad stuff happening there. So, yeah, anyway, I guess to get back to the main point, if we can, try to find a mass, like maybe pray a rosary in the car together as you're heading to the game, and try to keep the Lord first as much as you can, and don't like, you don't have to be a puritanical person about it, but just like, he's the one who's number one. And once again, I want to just repeat one more time that, like, at my core, at my identity, I'm a beloved son of the Father, and everything else flows from that. So if we can kind of just remember that as families, as Catholics, that we are beloved sons, we are beloved daughters of the Father, and everything else flows from that. Everything else is secondary. Sports is secondary to our Lord. Yeah.
First things first.
First things first.
Well said.
Yep.
Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah.
Try to shake your hand without knocking the mic over. But appreciate the time and appreciate everybody tuning in and watching. We'll put out another conversation with the seminarian here real soon.
Perfect.
Thanks and God bless.